in order to represent the Constitution and the value systems, I believe, of a vast majority of Hoosiers to Washington, D.C. Since that time, there's been an announcement that, Senator Bayh will not be seeking re-election, and suggested that it was because of the environment in Washington, D.C. And that environment in Washington, D.C. Had caused him to, I guess, vote in a way that he didn't really think he wanted to vote. I actually don't understand what that was all about. But there were a lot of good words, and he decided to not run for re-election. Well, that hasn't changed things for me, especially since most recently we have been made subject to one of the most egregious votes in the history of the Republic. I believe it's for the first time in the history of the Republic, you and I as private citizens are going to be mandated to purchase a private commercial product. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine how far we've come? That the federal government believes they can make us, they can force us to purchase a good or service that is offered by a private company. And I'm all for free enterprise. I am a stalwart for free enterprise. I believe that private industry and capitalism are the engine of growth and the engine of our economy. However, I'm not in favor of what you might call crony capitalism, whereby certain industries are made to benefit as the result of their family members being in places of power, for example. Once again, I'm all in favor of private industry. I'm not in favor of doing anything to harm it. But when government reaches in to your and my life and it seeks to control us to the extent that it makes us purchase, requires us to purchase under penalty of fine, requires us to purchase a private good or a private service, you know the government has gone too far. It has gone too far. And that is why when I go, if you should elect me to be the next senator from the state of Indiana, one of my first actions will be to co-sponsor with, I think, everyone else that's going to be elected in 2010, legislation to repeal the provisions of this most recent. Does that mean I can quit now? Is that what you're standing out? Okay, no, I won't do that. And the strategy is this, folks. The strategy is this. So if you can not take this outside of this room, I would appreciate it. The strategy is this. The strategy is we know that President Barack Obama will not sign repeal of his most prized crown jewel of his legislative initiatives. But what we can do is we can continue to put before him, as a new majority in the House and a new majority in the Senate, we can continually put before him legislation to repeal all of these different, either collectively or individually or in groups, certain provisions of this legislation, of this law, I should say. Because 2012 is just around the corner, and we need to keep this in front of every American going into the 2012 election so that in 2012 we can put someone in the White House that will sign into law repeal. Now, this is not unprecedented. In 1994, you will remember, Congress, the Republican-controlled Congress, campaigned on ending welfare as we know it, just like a fellow by the name of William Jefferson Clinton in 1992 campaigned on ending welfare as we know it. We sent a welfare reform package to President Clinton one time, and he vetoed it. Then we sent it to him a little bit later, another time, and he vetoed it. Then we sent it to him a third time, and Dick Morris took him aside and said, "Mr. President, you're running for re-election. You campaigned on ending welfare as we know it. You probably better sign one of these packages." And he did. And he signed it into law. This is the strategy that we must use in order to repeal this abomination that has most recently passed the Congress and been signed into law. And that's what is difficult for me to even talk about, is that this is actually law now. It is the law. It is the law. We have come to the point in America where it is now law that the federal government will reach into our private lives, reach into our homes, and they will mandate us to take care of ourselves. Just one more derivation of the nanny state that never ceases to amaze me. But it's not the only issue that we're dealing with in Washington, D.C. We're also potentially dealing with cap-and-trade legislation that will require reductions of emissions, CO2 emissions, meaning the reduction of the consumption, the burning of fossil fuels especially, which will not only devastate our overall economy in America, an economy so very dependent on fossil fuels and on energy in general, but will just terribly harm our economy here in southwestern Indiana and even west central Indiana, where we are in the prime location in the Illinois basin here to produce fossil fuels for this economy that is so dependent on energy. We don't need to do this. We have hundreds of years of reserves of fossil fuels that can be consumed responsibly and environmentally sound. I used to work in that industry, and I know that it was done, I know that it is being done, and I know that it can be done even better in the future. We do not have to lose hundreds of thousands and millions more jobs to an economy, for example, in China, that will never take this on. Brazil, that will never have similar legislation restricting their use of fossil fuels to power their economy. We don't have to do this, and we shouldn't do it, and I am opposed to it. There's also the consideration of immigration legislation, amnesty, that may be considered later on this year. There's some rumors that a member of Congress may have been promised a vote on amnesty legislation for his vote for the health care bill, which is understandable. He was a fellow that had a differing viewpoint on immigration reform than I did when I served as chairman of the subcommittee on immigration, border security, and claims from 2003 to 2007. And when I served in that capacity, we held dozens of hearings to find out the impact of illegal migration into our country, and whether it's crime or national security or the impact on on jobs for Americans who will do those jobs. Whatever it was, illegal immigration, the presence of millions of illegal aliens in our country was just decimating all different facets of our culture as well as our economy.